Welcome everybody to the March Austin DFW San Antonio Tug. My name is Chris Monahan. I'll be your MC today for the event. We've got a great event planned for you today. Can't wait to share it with you. But as always, before we get started, want to just thank all the friendly faces here on our advisory council that help us every month with putting this on. They're in charge of lining up the speakers, planning the events, planning the topics, the presentations. They do all the behind the scenes work. And today I'd like to especially thank Kobe Sparks, Brad Wheeler, James Parsons, John Burns, Amy Wu, all who especially contributed to today's event. So thank you guys. If you guys are interested out there in the audience that want to join our advisory council, reach out to myself or anyone on the council, and we'd be happy to include you on our meetings. So let's talk about today's event. We got a big agenda planned for you. We're going to kick it off with a couple of housekeeping announcements, but then we'll get to our featured presentation today. We have Lorna Brown, who's from the UK. Her name's she's the data coach at the Information Lab, and she's going to do a presentation cooking with Tableau cooking with Lorna, favorite Tableau recipes and tips and tricks. And this is coming from her book that she recently released last year. It's on O'Reilly. It's called Tableau Desktop Cookbook, so check it out. So she'll do her presentation here shortly. And then after that, we want to do our network breaking sessions like we normally do. We have our fan favorite, Ask Anyone Anything About Tableau. Kobe is going to be moderating that, and then I'll be moderating the strategy and adoption. So we'll be doing that following the presentation. In regards to the meeting format, this is a Zoom webinar, so please observe general Zoom etiquette. Go on mute unless you're asking a question. But we do want this to be interactive, so please share your video, share your face. We like to see our regulars here, and utilize the chat. We'll be if you have questions or just really like what you see during the presentations, call it out. We also will be doing surveys throughout the presentation, so look for those and please participate. And we even have some prizes that will be given away. So as far as housekeeping goes, our next Tug event is going to be in April. It'll be April 21st, and our own advisory council member, Brad Wheeler, will be speaking. Brad's a Tableau veteran and former VP of analytics at IBM, and he's going to sort of tell us about his journey, how creating dashboards on football, Tetris, Beat Saber, and Pink Floyd changed his life. Now, if that doesn't intrigue you guys, I don't know what will, but he's going to tell us how Tableau Public has influenced his career, and he'll deep dive into his Iron Viz presentation around Pink Floyd, which I've seen. It's absolutely cool, so you got to check it out. So don't miss this Tug event next month. Our next two Tugs, again, one in April 21st, which is virtual, and then we're going to be doing our first hybrid event, May 26th. So it'll be in person and virtual, so look for the details there. So speaking of in person, I've asked James Parsons and John Burns to tell us a little bit about some of our upcoming in-person events. We know we've all been doing this virtually for a long time, but now we'd like to get together and see each other and collaborate a little bit more to do some networking. So we have one coming up in April and one in May. So let me turn it over to John and James. John, James?
Cool. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, so we're going to be having two events. The first one's going to be in April, and it's going to be on the same day that we're having our virtual event. So right after, on Thursday, April 21st, we're going to be holding a 2-hour happy hour at Oscar Blues Brewery Tap Room, which is located near the Domain. This is a great opportunity to come out and network with some people that that know Tableau, and bring out people that, if you have friends that or know anybody that isn't really into Tableau at the moment, but is interested in getting their feet wet and starting that journey, feel free to please bring them out. This is an excellent opportunity for them to get acclimated to the group. So that'll be again on Thursday, April 21st, starting at 4:30. It's a 2-hour happy hour, but it'll really be going until everyone really leaves. So it's a soft ending. And then for our May event, this is going to be our first hybrid event where we'll have an in-person event, which will also be online, and then as well as a happy hour right after. So that'll be on May 26th. So the event will be from 3 to 4:30, and then we'll have that happy hour right afterwards. So more details to come on that location.
All right, Chris? Great. Yeah, thank you, John. So I'm going to go ahead and put put a little quick survey into our chat right now. And I want everyone who is in Austin or will be in Austin to go ahead and participate in this survey. And basically, we just want to know, try to get a general head count of how many people are going to show up, so we can go ahead and make sure that we can accommodate everybody. So please fill that out. It's in the chat right now. Take a few minutes to complete that. All right, and lastly, before we get to our presentation, TC is right around the corner. I don't know if everybody's been following, but Tableau conference is going to be May 17th through 19th. It also is going to be a hybrid event, in person and virtual. So if you want to visit Las Vegas, now would be a good time to do it. It's absolutely fun in person. If not, you can participate from virtually as well. Registration for Tableau conference, especially the in-person, will open on May 15th. So I put the URL there. You can also Google it, but make sure you get, there's limited availability. So if you want to attend in person, please register on May 15th. All right, and now for a featured presentation. I'm very happy to introduce Lorna Brown. She, as I mentioned, the data coach at the Information Labs in the UK, and she's been doing Tableau for a long time. She co-leads the Workout Wednesday as well as the Northwest UK Tug. So she recently launched her book, the Tableau Desktop Cookbook, and we're going to get a sneak peek into that today. So Lorna, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. So thank you very much for having me. It is 9 p.m. in the UK. So yes, I'm glad all these virtual events are still happening, so I can come and join lots of different tugs as well. So let me share my screen. So like I said, so we're going to go over some of my tips and tricks from the Tableau cookbook that I recently just wrote. So as you can see, the book is from O'Reilly, and I do have a wolf on my cookbook. I was telling Chris earlier that actually you don't normally get to pick your animal that goes on your book. However, I put a case together to say, actually, I think wolves really go well with Tableau in general because they are pack animals. And we like to have the Tableau data community. So we like to work in packs. They are instinctive. They like to build things and lots of different things. And luckily I managed to get the wolf as well. But I am a big Warrington Wolves fan, which is a rugby league team here in the UK. So kind of two birds, one stone. So kind of got my little hint in there as well. So as Chris mentioned, I am Lorna Brown. You may know me as Lorna Eden from a couple of years ago. I got married 3 weeks before lockdown in the UK. So that was a very lucky time for me to quickly get married before we had to reorganize our wedding. So I'm quite happy we managed to do that. And just as a sort of like just recently moved into the data school coach role. So if you want any more information about the data school, please do drop me a message and I'm happy to tell you anything more about that. So you might think, what is the Tableau Desktop Cookbook? When you think of a cookbook, you think about making wonderful and delicious meals. Well, Tableau version is very similar in terms of it follows those recipes, but this time you're actually making recipes to enhance your Tableau skills. Your next question is probably as well, why did I choose to write a book? Like the book is like this thick. So it's around, I think my profile page in the book is on 666, which is probably a very bad page for my profile to actually be on. But it's 666 pages long, and it took me over a year to write it during the lockdown, just because I wanted to put so much content in there. And from when I started with Tableau community, I always wanted to give back, because without the community, I wouldn't be where I am now, with the fact of reading people's blogs, reading other people's books as well. So I just wanted to be able to give back to the community. And you might also be thinking that you might already know a little bit of Tableau. So what are you going to get out of this? I've had lots of visionaries and Tableau ambassadors come to me and say that they've learned something new from the book as well. They use it as reference material all the time. So there is sprinklings of different recipes that you can then learn from to be able to help and enhance the way that you either teach Tableau or the way that you use Tableau going along. In the book, there are over 200 recipes and tips. So it's not, like I said, it's not a small book, and it does go through everything from connecting to data all the way up to publishing dashboards to our Tableau server or Tableau online environment. There is also hidden tips and tricks along the way. So when I do a discussion element, I normally add extra little things in there so that you can then enhance the recipe from the start. So let's jump into Tableau. I do have short links on being able to get the Tableau cookbook from Amazon. I can post them onto the chat later on so you can have them as well. I'm going to start a little bit backwards in the way that I am bringing things together today. I am going to start with my top 10 favorite tips that are within the book as well, but I'm starting with number 10 because 9 and 10, sorry, because this is my favorite chapter. So chapter 18 is about advanced mapping. And as much as I don't use advanced mapping in my day-to-day job, I really enjoy talking about it and making the calculations to go with it. So there's several calculations that we can do with our advanced mapping. In this data set, I have my latitude and longitudes for each destination airport and each origin airport. Now, to start with our calculations, we want to be able to build them onto a map. So let's call this origin point. And we're going to be using a function called make point. And what this allows us to do is we can add in our origin latitude, and if I can spell today, origin longitude. And then when I add this into my map, I'm only going to get a single point on my map at the minute because I have filtered to just JFK. But I do need to put some detail on here so I can click on my map. I'm going to duplicate this one here because I want to now also do my destination point. And this time, same sort of calculation, we're just doing destination longitude and destination latitude. And here's one of the cool features, and it's using the map layers. So previously in Tableau, you could only ever have 2 layers on a map. Now, again, I am only showing you 2 layers at the minute, but we will get onto 3 and 4 layers shortly. So now I have all of my destination airports broken down by individual airport location. One of the next calculations that I like to do is make line. And this allows us to create what's known as a hub and spoke map. So I can use those points that I've just created to generate a line between my origin and my destination. So this is just using the make line function between our start point and our end point. And now I can drag and drop that on top to do my make line. And I end up with this crazy looking spider diagram. Again, I do need to break this down by destination airport so that each individual line is its own point around there. Now, this is starting to look pretty cool. I can then move things around on my map so that actually my origin point stands out at the top. I can change the color so that we can see all of our origin things. Another cool thing with spatial, and I know I'm going on a lot about the spatial calculations, but it's using the option of buffer. So if I want to use a buffer around my origin, so let's say I want to do 100 miles around there, what I can do now is when I add that onto my map, I can see I've got this circle around my New York area. And actually, I forget how big America is, so I'm going to change this up to 500 miles instead so that we have a bigger circle. And what I also now want to do is I only want to keep the airports that are within that buffer radius. So I'm going to use another calculation, which is distance. So I'm going to say the distance, oh, not that one. The distance between my origin point and my destination point in miles is less than or equal to 500. Oh, not 5,000, 500. And then if I add that to my filter shelf and click true, I can now see all of the airports that are within my buffer area of my 500 meters. And we could parameterize that as well so that we can grow or shrink the buffer as we please. My next tip is QuickLODs. So how many times have you put on a reference line and you thought about, wouldn't it be great if I could just have that average line so that I can see which of my subcategories are above or below my average line? Now, some things you can do is I wish you could just drag this over here to save my calculation of the reference line. But with QuickLODs, I'm able to create that option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my sales. I'm hitting Control on my pad or Command on Mac, and I'm dragging it on top of my subcategory. You'll see this automatically creates a calculation, which is my measure and my dimension as a name. If I right click and edit this, this automatically creates me a fixed level of detail on my dimension and my sales. Now, I'm going to change this default property to average, because when you do a QuickLOD, it takes into the default properties what it is that you're trying to do. So now I want the average by category. So what I'm going to do again is going to hit Command or Control and drag and drop that one on top of my category. And now I have, if I make this wider, you can see I have sales by subcategory and category, which creates me my lovely nested level of detail calculation, which I can then put on my columns and see that I'm bringing back the same value as before. So there's lots of options there. We can now compare between our average to our actual sum of sales to see whether it's above or below our average. Now, another cool new feature that was recently brought in is parameter actions. So I'm going to add a reference line in here, and I'm going to do create new parameter, just call this sales P, change that to 10,000, and then also do one for my profit and change this one to my profit parameter and click OK. Now, I've just set them as random numbers, but actually what I want to do is I want to be able to click on this mark and update my parameters so that I can create a quadrant, see who's above, below, on average with that particular mark. So if I go to my worksheet and actions, and I go to add action, change parameter value, I can now set this to be my profit and my profit field. On the select and keep current value, always give your actions a name. So this is my profit, if I can spell. And then also let's repeat that for our sales value. So if I then go in and do my sales parameter, by my sales, on the sum, keep current value. Let's call that sales. Click OK, OK again. And now when I click on a mark, I can now see that my parameter is going to update along with my reference lines, because that's what I've told Tableau to do with my parameter action. Now, I really like this option of parameter actions as well. So let's say you have a dashboard where you want your users to be able to drag and highlight a particular date range. So I want to filter to this date range on my the rest of my dashboard. You can do that with filter actions, but let's do that with our parameter actions as well. So I'm going to create two parameters. I'm going to call this mint start date. And let's give that a date, leave it as current date. I'm going to duplicate that and I'm going to rename it to end date. Okay. And then on my reference line, I'm going to add a reference band, and I'm going to go my start date to my end date. Now, right now, it doesn't really look like anything's happened, but I'm going to create 2 new actions again. So in here, we're going to add a new parameter value, which is our start date. Let's choose start and my month of order date. And let's put that aggregation to a minimum. And I can recreate that for our maximum. So I'm going to call this end. And this time I'm going to use my end date, my month date, and then also change this to a maximum option. So now when I hover and highlight, I can now see that my band changes, which then allows me to use those parameters in calculations to then filter to a specific subsection of my data. And it allows me to potentially compare an average of that date range compared to the rest of my data sets. Sticking with parameters, I don't know about you, but parameters are, when you are looking at dates, I want it to be dynamic. So I only want it to pick up the last 12 months of this particular data set. So let's start creating this. So last 12 months. And what I want to do is I want to say, does the year of order date equal the max year of order date? If so, then give me my order date months. End. If I click OK, and I add that to my text, what you can see here, let me change that over to exact date and change it to discrete. You can now see that it's only now picking up my last 12 months data. So if I go into my order date parameters, what I can do is I can add this from my last 12 months, and therefore I'm only, let me clear all first. Last 12 months. I'm now only getting my last 12 months within my parameter as well. Well, what happens if you want this to be, you want your parameter to default to the month that we're in? So let's just pretend that this says 2022, and we want that to default to March 2022. So I'm going to create a calculation called today, and I'm going to go date trunc month of today. Let me do that one, which is then going to give me today's calculation. So that's going to give me, roll it up to the first of this month, so 2022. But actually we just want, I'm just going to highlight that so that my data makes sense. So make date 2022, 2021, 03, 01. And then within my parameter, what I can now do is when it says current value, I can choose my today M. And what happens there is that's going to update every time the workbook updates or the month rolls over. That will automatically default to that date that's within that calculation. I just love being able to use dynamic parameters in this way. Much like our parameter actions, we do also have set actions. Now, I never used to use sets as much until this feature came out. So to do set actions, all we need to do is I'm going to right click on my product and do create set. And then I can choose different pieces within my pizza. So I'm going to click OK, and I can then add that to color. And what we can do with our set action is if I go to worksheet and actions, I can add a set action in here. I can choose the set that I'm looking for. So it's my product set. And then I have 9 different possible combinations that I can use within my set action. I can now say if I want to assign all my values to the set, which then adds all the values to the set when I click off it. or keep set values. So I'm going to leave it as that for now. And then I'm just going to call this add to set. Click OK. OK again. So now when I highlight these options, they're the items that are going to be in my set. And when I click off it, they're also going to be in my set as well. If I now highlight these three, they're the ones that are going to be in my set. And the reason why we like set actions so much is because you can now compare between what's in and what's out of your set, depending on what it is you're trying to do with your dashboard. So things like proportional brushing. So how many states are within this particular set and how much percentage of sales do they contribute to the total sales? And sets just allows us to do that a little bit easier. Now, dashboard examples. So this is my tip number 3 and 4 within the book. So horizontal and vertical containers are probably your best friends because they just make life so much easier. So always try and start with a container before you put anything on your worksheet. This just allows us to not get into container hell in our item hierarchy. And you can nest multiple containers within them. And in the layout, you can also rename the dashboard item so that you can know exactly which container is where. But my other tip with not necessarily just for dashboards, but it does help when you are using bands. So if I put this worksheet in here, I'm going to delete those containers because I don't need them. Make this worksheet fit entire view. And I then have these bands that I want to go in. I'm going to hide my titles. I don't need them. And you can see that I've just got a little bit of a problem with my bands. They're not filling up the container in the right way. I don't want to have to drag this down and pin them in the right place. I just want it to just happen naturally. Even if I right click and unshow my header, I then lose the space that I want to naturally have. So if I go into that worksheet, the reason for this is because we've got nothing on our rows. So we could either put a blank header in, or we can use what is I like to call a dummy axis. So I'm just going to use the average of 0. I'm going to right click and unshow my header. I can change this back to text as well. I can just give this a little bit of go and get rid of those 0 lines if I need to. Now, when I go back to my dashboard, look what happens. I now automatically have the right amount of space for my worksheet. They're not pinned, so I can dynamically change everything. If there's more values in here, it's going to give me more space or less space. So always remember to have something on your axes or headers. An average of 0 is definitely your best friend going forward. Now, custom color palettes. You can bring in your own color palette. So if I, let's add my category to color and go into edit my colors. In here, I have a lot of different colors that I can pick from. So I have all of these colors down here, and you can add them in your Tableau repository. So if you go to your Tableau repository on your desktop and you find your preferences file, you should be able to add custom color palettes in your preferences file. Do check the Tableau help guide to see how they're created, or the recipe is in the cookbook as well to be able to help walk you through step by step. But with my fancy color palettes that I do have, if I want to use one of them for just a single color, when I click on my color, I don't have anything that gives me those options to pick from my color palettes. So again, I'm here with that dummy field again. So I'm just going to put in here the letter A. And I'm going to add that to my color. And now I can go in and edit my colors, and I can pick one from my lovely color palettes down here. And I want this bright pink color so that I will have all my bars as that bright pink color I could remember the hex code, but this is easier, especially as it's within my color palettes going forward. False highlighting is another, there's all of these are my favorites. So I don't know why I keep saying this one's my favorite, but they're just all so good. How many people get annoyed when you click on a bar and everything else gets grayed out in the background and you're just left with this one thing that's like standing out in your face? Because it really annoys me. I just want to see everything regardless of what I've clicked on. So there's several ways that we can do this. I have created a calculation just called highlight. And all that's in there is just the word highlight. If I add that to detail, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to worksheet and actions. And I'm going to add in a highlight action. And what happens here is I can select my field, which is just the highlight one. I'm going to call this false highlight and click OK and OK again. And now when I click on my accessories, everything else doesn't get grayed out in the background. I just have this black bar around the one that I have selected. It just allows for that better user experience when you've got so much interactivity going on with your data, with your dashboards. And then another extra tip is the show hide containers option. Now, in again, a previous version of Tableau, what you had to do was float your containers. I press Shift on my keyboard to float this container here. I could click on my drop down and click Add Show Hide button, which then allows me to collapse or show the container. But what I can do now is if I undo that and take it back to a fixed container. So this is within another set of containers. If I double click to get my container set, what I can do now is I can add that show hide button on the actual container that I have. So if I now click my show hide container, it's going to change it for the fixed container. Now this is such a powerful technique because it allows you to hide those filters if you don't want to see them when you're presenting something you've already pre-filtered and people know about it. So yeah, they're kind of all of my hints, tips and tricks that, not all of them, because there's obviously 200 in the book, but they're majority of my tips and tricks throughout this presentation. So thank you very much. I'd like to open it up for questions now.
Awesome.
If anybody has anything for me.
Well, if you have any questions, please go ahead and send them to Kobe. He's fielding all the questions. Kobe, did we get any questions come in?
No, we don't have any right yet. I have one though. So
Sure.
all of these tips that you just went through are in the book plus others.
Yeah.
Wow, very nice. There's also a question, can we get that workbook?
Yes, I will send the package workbook over to Chris and then he can then distribute it on, do you have a forum site, Chris, or email?
I'll do it via email.
Okay.
We send it out with the recording. Yeah, so I'll be sending all the information out with our regular email.
Cool.
And everybody, I also posted a chat in the chat, a link to fill out our survey if you want to win a free copy of the ebook. So please fill that out. We're giving away 5 free copies. So definitely fill that out. I did have a question. I think just looking at some of the chat, people, the QuickLODs were pretty a big hit. I think they always are.
Yeah.
And the false highlights, I like that. That one's really a pet peeve of mine. So I really like that one too. That's my favorite. What is, I guess 2 questions. What is your favorite out of all these? Maybe not just these, but out of the book. And then what's the most common one you usually get requests for? Like, hey, can I do this? Like, you know, I don't know, 2 parts to that question.
Yeah. I think my most common one is that false highlight one. It's being able to create that on the fly with dashboards, because you want to be able to create that seamless look and feel with your dashboards. And if you've got everything grayed out in the background, it doesn't feel like it's seamless. So yeah, I'd say that's probably my favorite one.
Cool. Very cool.
and most requested.
I like that one too.
We do have some questions that just popped in. One is, what version of Tableau are you using?
I'm using 2021.4, but most of the tips from this session could be done from, I think, 2021.2 and below. Yeah, and above, sorry. I think there is just I think the buffer one or the distance one is a relatively new, and map layers is still relatively new, but I think 2020 and above should be able to deal with most of the tips from today.
Yeah, and quick plug too, 2022.1 is coming out Tableau Online this week, and then also you have in a couple weeks general availability for everybody else. So check it out. Cool. Any other questions, Kobe?
Yeah, can the parameter actions work with an actual filter instead of clicking on a point?
That's a good question.
That is a good question.
I don't think so, because to work the parameter actions, you have to be able to click on a mark, unless you make a hacky workaround where the filter is affecting a sheet, but then you'd still have to click on that sheet to then filter the parameter. So yeah, I'd just stick to parameters where possible, if for that.
We also have another one that just said that the geo functions, that's the best presentation they've ever seen of that, and just all the parameter actions and everything. The question is, how's the book organized? Is it easy to hard, a general topic, and would you recommend it to new developers or experienced developer, or both?
Yeah, that's it. So what I try to do with the chapters is go from basics through to more advanced things. So the first section of the book is all about connecting to data, why we need to connect to the data, what is data itself, and then going on to the simple things like bar charts, line charts, scatter plots, etc. And then it builds through to the different chart types, and then the different types of techniques. So things like parameter actions, set actions, some dashboarding, some advanced mapping, all that sort of stuff. So it does go from beginner through to experienced, but even in the sort of like beginner sections, there's still some hints and tips that maybe some experienced users may not have seen before.
Cool. There's one final question. It looks like, does creating a dummy variable like the average 0 or the A for the color palettes actually add a column to the data, like a regular calculated field?
If you can add it as a regular calculated field if you want to, but when I double click on a row or a column or in the details marks card, it just does it as an ad hoc calculation. So I don't think it adds it as a row or a column, but you can then drag it from your ad hoc into your calculations to then save that particular calculation going forward. In fact, I'll just quickly show that one just for those that might not know. Because I've added this in my rows, if I drag it over to the left-hand side, it will then create that calculation for me. And that's really handy for when you're using table calculations as well. When you're doing quick table calcs, you can then drag and drop it onto the left-hand side to then save that calculation to use it in future sheets going forward.
And then it's like, for a question, with all the things that you just mentioned that are in the book, is it like under 100,000 pages or more?
It's 667 pages long.
Wow. Very nice. Very good job. Thank you.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah. Thank you, Lorna. I appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to come meet with us and showing us all these amazing tips and tricks. Yeah, we definitely want to have you back some other time. Everyone, let's give Lorna a round of applause. Yeah, a virtual round of applause there. And I'll be sending out a recording as well as the workbook, so everybody has it. And Lorna, thank you very much again.
You're very welcome. I'll pop the link in for the Amazon version as well, so that you can go and have a look on Amazon and kind of get a sneak preview as well. So definitely recommend getting the free ebook if you can. So we'll pick out some winners for that one.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, yeah, that was a great presentation. That was awesome. So what we'll do now, this is our networking breakout sessions. For those of y'all not familiar with how this works, we have 2 breakout rooms in Zoom. The first room is going to be Ask Anyone Anything about Tableau. Kobe's going to be a moderator there. I'll be moderating the strategy and adoption. So in 1 second here, I'm going to go ahead and open up the rooms. Give me a second. Let me stop.